this property runs this community. A lot of people from this community work here. They're proud of this. This has got a lot of history here. And then when you think about the beauty with the hills, the mountains, the trees, the water.
One thing about this place is one of the words he kept saying, family. It's a place that when my family and everyone comes, they treat you like family. They treat you like you're one of their own. And it's, obviously when you look at the place, you look at the rooms, everything, it's like taking a step back in time. And I think that's an absolutely amazing place to be able to put your phone down and slow everything down. I mean, the world these days is so fast. Everything has to get done so quickly. And every time I've come here with my family at Greenbrier, it's like everything stops and it's slow motion. You actually get to enjoy life, enjoy your time with family.
Just this place feels like I'm a kid again. You get out here, you see nature, you see the trails, you see going on a hike. I grew up in Fresno. We go up to the mountains every once in a while, and that's just kind of what it feels like a little bit. And obviously, it's more forested here and whatnot, but the 58, I don't know how to explain it. Just kind of semi-blacked out, you can kind of say. It was one of those moments where the last 4 holes, I was obviously trying to win a tournament, but it started to rain, and I just kept focusing on my game. I didn't get outside of this bubble that I created with myself. I just wanted to focus on hitting the next best shot. And I think that's what really pushed me on to focusing on obviously winning the tournament, but to shoot in the 50s and then ultimately make the 40-footer on the last hole for 58. That was just the cherry on top. And what a special moment, a special place in my heart forever, and probably one of the most special moments in my entire life.
Hour number 2 is officially live right here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Donnie Rightside here. Fun in the sun. That's what a lot of these NFL teams are doing right now, which does include the Philadelphia Eagles and the New England Patriots. Now, let's get to some graphics here on the board and take a look at what the expectations for the New England Patriots actually are going to be this season. 24-25 to make the playoffs. I don't think it's looking all that good here because you take a look at that schedule, and the schedule actually isn't checking out all that well. Now, if we're going on a game-to-game basis here and we're taking a look at the Patriots, game number 1, it's against the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think that's going to work out all that well. The reason being that they're much better, and you have a starting quarterback that you have in Joe Burrow, and Jamar Chase should be back in the lineup, and all that stuff should, quite frankly, help you out there. Game number 2, it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks here. And where are you going to play the Seahawks? At home? Okay. Well, the Seattle Seahawks have a much better football team. So let's just say that's 0 for 2. Let's get to game number 3. That's the New York Jets. And the New York Jets on the road, that's probably going to be an underdog play, and it's probably going to be a loss again. So now we're taking a look at 0-3 for the Patriots. And I know you can't really trust and say to yourself, this is always what happens in the NFL. Just the better football team that's going to be favored wins these games. That's not necessarily the case, and we understand that. But if we get that graphic back up here, let's keep moving. So I have them at 0-3 right now for the New England Patriots. At the San Francisco 49ers in week number 4. Probably going to be a loss again. Now we're looking at 0-4. You go take on the Miami Dolphins. Again, you're at home. Maybe there's a chance, but if you were the New England Patriots, would you rather have that game maybe late in November, late in December where the weather has changed? Let's just say that's an 0-5 start. Now you get the Houston Texans at home, which last year, like, hey, look, rookie quarterback here, we'll be able to beat them. Now you have one of the better teams anticipated in the AFC coming into your own building. That's another loss. That's 6 straight losses to start the season for a rookie head coach here. And also keep in mind, who's going to be the starting quarterback? Gerard Mayo's got to make a decision here. Do you throw the young Drake May into the Wolves here, or just go with Jacoby Brissett and say, hey, kid, we signed you here. You're a veteran presence. We know you're not going to embarrass us. You're going to be able to run the offense, and we'll take it from there. So that's 6 straight losses to open up the season. Then you take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it looks like that game is going to be played one of those overseas games. I think probably in London. That's typically where the Jacksonville Jaguars play. The Jaguars are a better team. So let's go 0-7 for the Patriots. And I understand. Some days you're going to get good efforts. Some days you're going to get bad efforts out of some of these teams. So that's 0-7. Then you're going to take on the Jets again, who, let's just say Aaron Rodgers is still playing. They're going to beat you. So I think we can do this all the way across. Where are the wins coming from? So instead of let's go like week by week for the New England Patriots, honest, where are these wins actually coming from? The Jets? I don't think so. Here's one. But the problem is it's not even at home. It's at the Titans. Who knows who's going to, Mr. Mayonnaise, maybe a quarterback there, and we'll see if Will Levis can do some things, and DeAndre Hopkins should be back. But there's more talent on that Titans team than the New England Patriots team, and you're on the road. That's a possibility of a win. Going to the Bears. The Bears still have a rookie quarterback with expectations for the Bears are maybe a playoff team, but that's still a road game. It's hard to win on the road. The Rams come to town. If Matthew Stafford is still there with Sean McVay, they're expected to make the playoffs this year. Then you take a look at on the road against the Dolphins and then against the Colts at home. Maybe that can be a victory. But the Super Bowl, people, for the New England Patriots, could it be that game in Week 15? But it's on the road against the Cardinals. Like, if Kyler Murray is back and playing decent football, they probably will win that game too. Where do the wins come from this year for the Patriots? Now, granted, Vegas making the odds, the FanDuel Sportsbook making the odds, they're not dumb. So you take a look at the price points here, right? The playoffs, plus 920 for the Patriots. We don't expect them to get there. The AFC East, 24-1 to win the division. I don't think that's going to happen. Worst record in the NFL, a 3-1 price here. And also, if you can put, is it 4.5? What's the team total of the Patriots? I believe it's 4.5 games. Like, I just went over that schedule. It's hard to even find a win. Maybe it's the Titans, maybe it's the Cardinals, but both of those games are on the road. Where are 5 wins coming from the Patriots? Now watch, we understand how the NFL works sometimes. They'll upset the Bengals on the road, handle the Seahawks at home, 2-0 Patriots, best story in football. We've seen some crazy shenanigans like that in the NFL in the past. But for my money, the Patriots aren't getting any of it except for unders on the season and also from a game-to-game basis. The whole definition of the Patriots season will be, hey, guys, let's play really good defense, even though we traded our best defender away here on the defensive line that can actually sack the quarterback. What are they going to win games? 17-13, 17-10, 17-14, 21-20 if we're lucky at this point? It's kind of wild how that's going to figure out. But then again, there is a team on the opposite side that the New England Patriots are going to play tonight, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. And you heard me, as an Eagles fan, not understanding the whole total process of nobody on the offense going to get any run in the preseason, which looks like that could be the case. Maybe Nick Sirianni, head coach, is going to say, you know what? Let's get these guys some run. Let's get the good vibe. Let's get a touchdown drive together before we take on the Green Bay Packers overseas down in Brazil. But the Philadelphia Eagles, much different scenario this season than the New England Patriots. Patriots, 4.5 win total. The Philadelphia Eagles had a 10.5 win total. To win the division themselves, a minus 140 price. They didn't win it last year. They should have won it last year. They collapsed at the end of the season. The Dallas Cowboys won the division. So the Eagles looking to come back. And keep in mind, that real quirk with the NFC East, guys. No division winner in the NFC back-to-back since 2004. Eagles win a Super Bowl 13-1 price. And, of course, to make the playoffs at a 290. I think the Eagles have a solid season, but there's a lot of question marks. There really are. The one question mark I don't have with the Philadelphia Eagles, honestly, is the offense. Understandably, Jason Kelce retired in the offseason, maybe one of the best centers to ever play in the NFL, certainly the best center in Philadelphia Eagles history. And that's going to be a slight issue here. But that offensive line still ranked anywhere in that top 5, top 6 range in the NFL. That should be good enough. Jalen Hurts, from all indications through the practice reports and the beat writers writing out, hasn't thrown a single interception in training camp. Is that huge for the regular season? Well, it's better than throwing 15 or 20 interceptions to your own teammates or those joint practices. I understand that, but looks more healthy. The scrambling ability, which is a little bit hampered down the stretch last year with that knee, doesn't look like it's an issue. Saquon Barkley comes over from the New York Giants. And what does that mean? A dominant ground game here. Anytime you're running RPO between Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, that's going to be an issue. You take a look at the tight end, top 5 in the league, Dallas Goedert. Look at the wide receiver position, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, probably the best overall tandem in the NFL, but certainly in that argument if you don't place them number 1. The questions for me aren't coming up on offense. Last year, you had a bad offensive coordinator, blew that system out. Now you take a look at Nick Sirianni bringing in Kellen Moore to run his own system. Things should improve and be more competent because the one thing the Eagles didn't do the past 2 years is a lot of pre-snap motion. Kellen Moore's going to put that in place so you're not so predictable where the other defense is screaming out loud exactly what your play call is. Flip it over to the Philadelphia Eagles defense. Here's what's key. Last year, Matt Patricia calling the shots here. Sean Desai, a complete whiff on the defensive coordinator, which leads to confusion in the secondary and from the linebacker position. How many blown plays did you see out of the Philadelphia Eagles down the stretch? They embarrassed themselves on that Monday Night Football playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wide open routes all night long. Vic Fangio brought in for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's just designed to be that old school defensive coordinator to teach the young players exactly where to be. It's just up to them to make some plays. The Eagles, I thought, had a very good draft, re-upping that secondary and making it a little bit more like, you know what? We might be able to shut some guys down. We'll see if that linebacking core, which the Eagles are notorious for not spending a lot of money on, picked up Devin White from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as that veteran presence. Nakobe Dean coming back into the lineup after last year, sitting out the majority of the season on IR. Now, you do lose Hassan Reddick to the Jets. I guess you could say he went to the Jets as he hasn't shown up to camp yet. So there are question marks on that defense. Can they be a shutdown defense? But in today's NFL, do you absolutely need a shutdown defense? No. You just need to have at least an average defense to go along with a dominant offense, and you can win a lot of football games. So case in point, do I think the Philadelphia Eagles can win the NFC East? I really do think they will win that because, again, the vibes for the Eagles much, much higher than the Cowboys right now, as Jerry Jones continues to tell you, hey, you know what? I think we'll get this deal done with CeeDee Lamb, even though we're not even close at this point. We have 2 weeks left until we hit the starting line of the regular season. So many things to be ironed out, so many crazy options on the table. But if we're looking at the NFC East, I think it is the Philadelphia Eagles. Do I think they get to 11 wins and go 11-6? I think they do. Are they making the playoffs? Yup. It's just a matter if they can be one of the best teams in the NFC, which has a lot of talent in the San Francisco Giants, the Detroit Lions, and so on here. The NFL, we're close here, but you know who? Women's basketball is back. Yeah, let's talk about it next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFL selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place. I promise you. And game time decisions, we will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
One change in the legislature in Missouri is that this guy who's just totally against sports betting there is not going away.
This has been in progress since last fall. They got 300 and some thousand signatures. All they needed was 170, but those were all certified by local election boards. That had to be done by earlier this month. By tomorrow, the Secretary of State has to verify all those signatures.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Hour number 2 in full effect right here on the early line, and a solo mission looks to be completed now. Did you have fun in hour number 1? I did. Did you have fun in hour number 2 to start it? Absolutely. But sometimes we got to talk to the experts here to get some information on the WNBA back in our live. How about this? Senior writer from Winsider with us today, and that is Myles Ehrlich. Myles, thanks for joining us here on a Thursday. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, Donnie, it's great to see you. Great to see you.
Fantastic. Let's get right down to it. The Olympics itself, before we get to the actual basketball, how did you enjoy those 2 weeks? Because for me, sometimes you enter the Olympics not knowing what to expect. I love the fact that the Olympics was on in that time frame for us East Coasters to watch it in the morning and the afternoon and then sort of catch up at night. What did you enjoy outside of basketball in the Olympics, and how did it treat you there with Paris?
I think that that's my favorite thing about the Olympics is that there are sports that I've never watched before that I'm going to fall in love with every 4 years. I think the rugby 7-on-7 was it for me this year, but also the basketball 3-on-3. Both of those were just sports that I'm not used to watching in that kind of volume or that time of day, and I enjoyed them both.
Yeah, it was a good time watching all the way through. Even if breakdancing is not going to appear for the 2028 Olympic run, it had a great run over there in Paris, and we can always think, what if we saw that on U.S. soil? But I enjoyed the track and field, the pool. Everything was fantastic, which includes, Myles, Team USA, both men's and women's, coming away with the gold medal here. Now, from a men's perspective, yeah, we anticipated, but we thought they might get some fights along the way. The question was always, what sort of fight were we going to get from the women's side of the competition? We were asking just about every guest, Myles, coming on, saying, do you think anybody is going to be able to stay at least in that single-digit range of Team USA? And you take a look at beating Japan, beating Belgium, Germany, and Nigeria, along with Australia easily, and they got up to France. Before we get to the final game against France, coming into the Olympics for you, Myles, the expectations for Team USA, we know it was gold medal, but what were you anticipating before the team actually played a game in Paris?
I was thinking it was going to be most of what we saw in that tournament run. The world, I think, is getting closer, is catching up a bit, and there's so much W talent that's spread around the world now. But you're still looking at this Team USA roster, which is the best of the best, which took on Team WNBA at the All-Star game before they left U.S. soil. So they got pushed there. They lost that game, but that's still how much of a gulf there is between this USA roster put together and the rest of the world. But wow, that final was something else. And I think that that's what happens when you go to the host country and you're playing a road game in something that should feel like a neutral site, is anything can happen.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, too, because obviously we're rooting for Team USA to win, and win easy is always nice. But in the back of your mind, like, can't we just at least get a game so we can enjoy this a little bit more? And Team France coming right out of the break in the second half, taking control, is like, oh, my goodness, can Team USA come back? But they were fantastic down the stretch. The one thing I do enjoy is, away from the NBA and the WNBA, the physicality of the international sport is so much fun to watch, and how these ladies handled it. I thought it was great. And right down to the wire, beating France, getting the gold medal. Now we turn our attention, Myles, to 2028. We know there's going to be changes to that roster, but as you said, the rest of the world catching up is great. Now the Olympics come to U.S. soil. What are the expectations and maybe what that roster is going to look like in 2028?
So the expectations are going to be 9 straight golds, right? That is the standard, and I think that that's some of what we saw in that final game. Is all these players knew that that was what they were playing for, was to bring home 8. You don't want to be the one that loses that streak. So 2028 is super exciting. It's going to be the first time, presumably, without Diana Taurasi in 7 Olympics, but there are going to be some spots there, and we're seeing the growth of women's basketball right now stateside. And names like Caitlin Clark, like Angel Reese, like Juju Watkins, Paige Beckers will all be in the mix, I'm pretty confident, 4 years from now. And you're still going to have Prime Stewie and Prime Asia and Nafisa Collier. So I think that those 3 are the core that's going to move forward. But you look at just so many players that made impacts, especially in that final game, in Kalia Copper, in Kelsey Plum, in Sabrina Ionescu. So I think that they're going to have a really strong foundation, a really strong core, and they're going to add to it with some of this exciting next generation.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I think the women's game certainly is on solid footing now, because anytime the world starts to get better, that means the WNBA has to get better, the U.S. has to get better. It makes for compelling basketball, and we certainly got that from the home team there in France in that game, which, quite frankly, through the majority of that game, it's like, boy, you're expecting Team USA to pull away. They were never able to do that, and coming back from a double-digit deficit in the second half to get gold makes that a little bit more special. But before you know it, we're like, man, the WNBA, Myles, is going to take off an entire month. That's crazy. They're just going to disappear from our imagination, and poof, here they are with a triple header tonight. Before we get to some of those games, the expectations for the second half and some players to watch that we're going to take a look at, who might they be for you?
So the first player that I want to talk about actually is not in the WNBA as of now. It's Gabby Williams, who very nearly pulled off an upset in that France gold medal game. Gabby has said that she's willing to come to the W. She's been in the W the last few years, but took off to prioritize France. And we saw what she did. She put that team on her back, and she has announced that there are, or it has been reported that 3 teams are interested in her services: the New York Liberty, the Seattle Storm, and the Minnesota Lynx. Sorry, not the Minnesota Lynx, the Storm, the Mercury. The Mercury were the third one. So the 3 of them are trying to get Gabby over, and those are 3 teams that are in playoff contention. Where Gabby lands can really help any of those rosters. And then the other player in New York I wanted to focus on was Breanna Stewart, because something's still going on with her shot. She's a career 35% three-point shooter, which is right about league average. But this season, she's shooting just 23% from deep on 4.2 attempts per game. Her 2-point percentage is the second highest in her career, the highest since her first MVP season in 2018. But in the Olympics, Stewie made just 4 of 14 shots, which is 29%. So I'm really interested to see what happens with Breanna Stewart's outside shot, because I think that could limit what the Liberty can do in making a deep run.
We'll get to some more questions here in the next segment, but quickly here, I see you have the Minnesota Lynx as the team to watch. 17-8 on the season, only behind the Liberty and the Sun. What can we expect out of the Lynx here in that second half of the season?
They have the easiest strength of schedule going forward. They face the Aces twice, the Liberty, Sun, and Mercury once each. But these top 5 teams are all going to be trying to avoid that 4-5 matchup. So it's the Liberty, the Sun, the Lynx, the Storm, and the Aces as we hit the break. But having that easiest strength of schedule can help Minnesota try to find one of those top 3 spots so that they can hopefully get some home court advantage. And the season for the second half.
More Myles Ehrlich next with us right here on the Early Line.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
One change in the legislature in Missouri is that this guy who's just totally against sports betting there is not going away.
This has been in progress since last fall. They got 300 and some thousand signatures. All they needed was 170, but those were all certified by local election boards. That had to be done by earlier this month. By tomorrow, the Secretary of State has to verify all those signatures.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
WNBA back in effect, and we're going to talk about it once again right here on the Early Line with senior writer from Winsider, Myles Ehrlich, and let's get right to it. Like, we're hunting here. You got the Liberty, the Sun, the Lynx, the Storm, and the Aces all up top. If I asked you your championship prediction today before the quote-unquote second half starts up here, who's that going to be for you, Myles?
So this is always my least favorite question. It was not an issue until the Liberty were contenders, because that is the team that I cover locally. That is my home market. And they have been the best team throughout the first half of the season. But I think I still need to say the Las Vegas Aces, because they're going for this unprecedented three-peat. It hasn't been done since the first 3 years of the league. And they still have A'ja Wilson, who's running laps around everybody else as the best player in the world. So right now, it's kind of one of those scenarios where I think we saw this. The comparison I can make on the men's side is when we just saw LeBron running roughshod through the Eastern Conference for a decade. It feels like that's what A'ja is doing to the entire WNBA. She is by far the best player in the league, and they are returning 4 Olympians home from that Team USA roster, a third of that roster. That's just how built they are for it. Until somebody dethrones them, I say the Aces are the team to beat.
I agree with you, too. I mean, anytime, like, you can just go down low to A'ja Wilson anytime you want, and she can dominate. That is an unbelievable player to have on your side when you're looking to hunt down championships here. Now, from a Rookie of the Year perspective, we're obviously still looking at Caplan Clark here. Look at her season statistics here. Points per game, 17 points. Assists per game, 8 points. Rebounds, close to 6 per game. And seemed like she was getting better as the years going on. She got a nice little break here. Didn't have to play in the Olympics. Now she's back for the second half. Talk to me about this Rookie of the Year candidate, what we can expect over the second half of the season.
Sure. I think what's been most impressive is that it has not been the runaway race for Rookie of the Year that we expected. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have both really exceeded expectations. I think that their shooting percentages are lower than we might have expected. They're both around 40%. But when you look at the effective field goal percentage with Caitlin, that bumps up because of all those long threes she takes. But for her to be leading the league in assists while also putting up 17 points a game, while also having Indiana in position for a playoff spot as of now. And then you look at Angel and that was a full rebuild in Chicago, and that they're in a playoff position as well. And that Angel is right now neck and neck with not just A'ja Wilson for leading the league in rebounding, but for the best rebounding season in the WNBA all time. That's pretty awesome. I just think that what Caitlin is doing, like you said, she's at the top of all these categories, is just pretty remarkable. And she keeps on getting better, and she's putting up these record performances that we're now seeing her get more comfortable, which is what we thought we would see. But the chemistry building, especially with Aaliyah Boston, and the fact that both of these players were able to take a break for 3 weeks after coming straight from college, straight from that tournament, and going right into training camp, I think is huge. And this second half, we should see the best.
And also, let me ask you this quick question, too. Like, we had a long layoff, which you don't usually get during a professional basketball season. What are the expectations from the players coming right back to it? And also, what are these expectations on the schedule here? Back-to-backs, tight environments that you're playing in. Do we expect clean basketball right out of the gate, or could we see some upsets here?
So I would probably expect clean basketball only because these are rosters that have been together. Yes, they might be missing 1 or 2 players, but they've largely been practicing the last couple of weeks. And I think that especially these young teams have had that time and that synergy to work together, as opposed to training camp where a lot of them are coming together for the first time. So yeah, you're going to be okay if you're plugging in a Jewel Lloyd or an A'ja Wilson or a Brianna Stewart. You'll be all right. All those secondary players are staying ready to go, and I think they're all going to just kind of hit the ground running.
Your team to watch in the second half here, the Minnesota Lynx, record 17-8 points per game, 81 per game against 75. Their title odds now sit at an 8-1 price. They're playing tonight against the Washington Mystics as a heavy favorite. There are 2 other games on the schedule tonight. The New York Liberty and the Sparks are going to play at 9 p.m., but also a key game here, the Phoenix Mercury and the Chicago Sky, a slight favorite for the Mercury here. What can you tell me about that Mercury Sky game you're looking forward to watching, and also maybe who might win that basketball game?
Yeah, in this game, I lean the Chicago Sky for all those reasons I just said, that they've got this young team that has been able to practice together, but also Phoenix is bringing back Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, Kalia Copper were all on Team USA. Beck Allen, unfortunately, suffered an injury before the Olympics and is going to be out. So that's 4/5 of their starting lineup that is going to be likely somewhat compromised, because this is also the first half back-to-back, because they're playing the Fever tomorrow as well. So they're starting with 2 games on the road with an older roster and with all of this travel from Paris in front of them. So I really like the Sky in that matchup tonight.
How about that? The WNBA back in our lives in a big way. Thanks for joining us this morning, senior writer from Winsider, Myles Ehrlich. Myles, let the people know where they can catch you quickly.
Sure. I'm at Myles Ehrlich on Twitter, and that's mostly where I'm posting.
Thanks for the time. We appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFC selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
One change in the legislature in Missouri is that this guy who's just totally against sports betting there is not going away.
This has been in progress since last fall. They got 300 and some thousand signatures. All they needed was 170, but those were all certified by local election boards. That had to be done by earlier this month. By tomorrow, the Secretary of State has to verify all those signatures.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Well, would you look at that? Finally here on a Thursday morning. I am live on the early line. We had some technical issues in our studio, but we have prevailed. A sincere shout out to Donnie Rightside, who should take a segment or two off after powering through for an hour and a half to keep everybody live right here on TEL. Our guys in the back as well, and we are very excited on this Thursday to welcome on SportsGrid's NFL insider Adam Caplan, who is live right now in Nashville, where he's been taking in Titans and Seahawks joint practices the last few days. Cap, as always, very glad to see you here. How's the training camp tour going for you to get ready for 2024?
Yeah, Ben, good to be with you guys. It's been good. It's been good. Weather, always a challenge this time of year, but so I am in Nashville. Today's day 2 of the joint practices. Yesterday's practice, guys, was 2.5 hours, which is, yeah, I know exactly, Ben. It's usually practices are hour and a half, hour and 45. Very physical. There wasn't any tackling, but it was a very lively practice, and I'll be headed out there in a little bit to go to the second practice for really two teams that I think when we really look at it, I don't want to say they're not in a rebuild, but they're sort of transitioning. You've got 2 new head coaches and 2 new schemes in offense and defense, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we see today.
Yeah, Mike McDonald, year number 1 in Seattle. Brian Callahan takes the reins in Nashville. The Titans will host the Seahawks on Saturday evening in preseason week number 2. Cap, let's start with the big story around the National Football League this week. That's in Minnesota. Rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy, a torn meniscus that needs a full repair in surgery. His rookie campaign, short-lived. He is out for 2024. Cap, as you have talked to people around the NFL, what has the reaction been inside the Vikings franchise to this news?
Yeah, it's devastating because, Ben, most people don't know this. McCarthy was really good in last week's preseason game at home against the Raiders. He threw under duress, a lot of traffic around him, made great throws, showed that his mechanics were much improved. And now, unfortunately, his season is cut short. And, they didn't know when they went into when you go into repair a meniscus, there are two ways to do it. You've got the trim that would have put him back in about 4 weeks, or you got the full-blown repair, which is a 4 to 5 month rehab, and obviously he won't be able to come back. And that just it hurts his progress. All he can do is rehab. He can't practice. He's not allowed to when you go. He hasn't put on IR yet, but he will. And you can't practice. You can go to meetings. You could be on the practice field and watch practice, take what we call mental reps. So it's a very tough deal. And Sam Darnold, who somehow is only 27 years old, Ben, he'll be the starter for the rest of the season. Nick Mullins, a journeyman who's been on 5 teams, will back him up. Who, by the way, is every once in a while when Mullins gets to play, does a good job. You might remember with the 49ers some years ago, he actually did a good job. But, yeah, this is devastating. Because Sam Darnold, talking to people around the league, Ben, Sam Darnold is the guy, if you need him to start 3 or 4 games, he gets you out of a tough spot. But there's a reason why he's on team number 4. He's just not a full-time starting quarterback, but he's going to have to be. They have nowhere else to turn. But one positive is, before we move on, he does know this West Coast scheme. He played in it last season with the 49ers. It's a very similar scheme that they're running with Kevin O'Connell, the head coach and the guy who calls the plays for the Vikings. And I'm told that's why he's there. So they're going to get a big look at him starting this week.
Yeah, what a shame, because we didn't know how the season was going to turn out or who that starting quarterback was going to be week number 1, but certainly J.J. McCarthy was going to be factoring into those plans. Let's take a look at another guy we're expected to factor into the plans for those same San Francisco 49ers. It's Brandon Ayuk. I want to ask you 2 questions. How have we gotten to this point with Brandon Ayuk, and where is he going to wind up week number 1?
Donnie, let me give you the Cliff Notes version. It's one of the most bizarre stories that I've covered in years. So I could just tell you that, and I've put this on SportsGrid since the draft. Ayuk, and I know he later asked for a trade, but we'll explain that. He really doesn't want to play anywhere else. But if he had a preference, it would certainly be the Steelers. That's very, very clear. They want him, and if he can't get his deal done like he wants, though there's been progress as I understand it, he would want to go to the Steelers. But what's kind of happened here is the Niners were, Donnie, not budging off of what they wanted to pay him, which is a little bit above the deal that Devontae Smith got with the Eagles, which I think with the way the Niners looked at it, for them, he's a number 2. If you put him on the Steelers, George Pickens is great. You could debate who the number 1 receiver would be. If you put Ayuk on Buffalo, he's clearly their number 1 receiver. But the problem is, Donnie, for the Niners, they can't justify paying him high-end starter money like A.J. Brown got $32 million or Justin Jefferson got $35 million. If it gets done, it should be around $29 to $30 million, around that Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, which you got around $30 million. That's, again, if it gets done, and that's where we are. Ricky Pearsall, who would replace him if they were able to make that trade with Pittsburgh. Unfortunately, now he's dealing with his second injury, which is a shoulder issue. And they just don't have an adequate replacement right now. And they know if they want to make the Super Bowl, which is I've told people since May, you don't trade Ayuk. You don't trade your best players when you're trying to get back there. But they are where they are.
In 2024, 4 wide receivers around the National Football League, a part of the $30 million per year club. Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Tyreek Hill. Speaking of those Eagles, Cap, last week we thought the starters were going to play for Philadelphia in the preseason opener. Now it's week number 2 in Foxborough as New England hosts Philly as a 2.5-point favorite tonight to kick off week 2 of the NFL preseason. What's the plan on both sides? Let's start in Philadelphia. Will we see Jalen Hurts and some of those starters for the Birds?
All right, here's what happened. So last week, yes, although it's really funny, Ben, the defensive starters, a lot of them played, but it had rained in Baltimore the entire day. And 2 hours before the game, it stopped raining, but the Eagles planned to play them last week. The offensive starters 1-2 series, but they pulled the plug on it because of the slickness of the grass. Now, typically, guys, when you have a joint practice, if the starters work, and they did, by the way, on both sides of the football, you typically don't play your starters in the preseason game. But my sense is that either this week or next week against Minnesota, they want the starters out there. It's not going to be for very long. We've talked about this on SportsGrid a bunch lately. When I first started covering leagues, when we had 4 games, starters didn't play in the first game. Second game, they played a quarter. Third game was a dress rehearsal. They play a half or into the third quarter. In the fourth game, they wouldn't play. Ben, it's not like that anymore. It depends on the team. That's the point.
Also, taking a look at Adam, so many times it would be really rare if they never played their starters in the preseason. But obviously, you said the defense did get some time in here. Usually, you have those 2 practices with the team that you're going up against. The Philadelphia Eagles only had 1 practice, so therefore, I thought they might have been setting up to actually play in the preseason. But we look at the line at the FanDuel Sportsbook, completely in reverse. The Eagles were a favorite to start the week. Now they're an underdog by about a field goal. But if you look at the seasonal impact for the Eagles, expected to win that division, what are we thinking about the Eagles' chances in 2024 to do some damage or maybe return back to that 2022 season?
So, Donnie, but as an Eagle fan, that collapse that they had was historic. It was awful.
Yeah.
They are, by the way, minus 120 to win the NFC East. And I'm sure you know this crazy divisional stat. We have not had any repeat division winner since your Eagles were in the midst of winning the division 4 times in a row, 0-1 through 0-4. No one's won it back-to-back since 0-4, so that would probably eliminate the Cowboys. But the bottom line is, guys, the Eagles are the best team in that division. I'll be with them again on Saturday. But this is not the team in 2022 when they made the Super Bowl. They're not that good. Their biggest issue is at inside backer. That would worry me a little bit. Depth at wide receiver. And they might have Mekhi Becton at right guard this season. It's hard to believe. But, yes, Mekhi Becton right now is leading the way at right guard, a position he'd never played before until he got with the Eagles.
The big guy coming over from the New York Jets. The Birds, though, the favorites to win the NFC East, as Cap alluded to right there, at a minus 140 price, moving past the Cowboys throughout this offseason and into early training camp. Cap, we appreciate the time on this Thursday. Enjoy today in Tennessee and the rest of your training camp tour.
Guys, sounds good. Enjoy it.
Appreciate it. More around Major League Baseball comes your way up next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
One change in the legislature in Missouri is that this guy who's just totally against sports betting there is not going away.
This has been in progress since last fall. They got 300 and some thousand signatures. All they needed was 170, but those were all certified by local election boards. That had to be done by earlier this month. By tomorrow, the Secretary of State has to verify all those signatures.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. I heard Donnie Rightside throughout most of the opening hour. I know he recapped some of what we saw around a Wednesday in MLB with a 7-game slate on this Thursday. But DRS, you and I didn't really get the chance to speak this morning, which is a bummer for me. It's how I like to start off each and every weekday here on the early line. So a little bit of Major League Baseball recap, shall we?
Yeah, we'll have some fun with that. But also, like, I'm a good co-host, and we're not supposed to actually, dip into this. Like, Ben's alarm didn't go off. He was late to the studio. I had to cover for an hour and a half. That's really what went down behind the scenes. So I didn't want to let that out. But, sometimes the people like to know exactly what was happening.
So, what's the tough part about that is I could hear you in the opening 7 in, 7 when you admitted that we had technical issues and that I was awaiting to join. It's just those technical issues took a little bit of time to resolve. So I appreciate you trying to throw me under the bus, but I can't really get mad at you because you carried the load on your back this morning to make sure the people got exactly what they needed here on the early line. Not You know what I mean by that. Like you're working hard this morning.
By the way, anybody, maybe certain people tuned in at this point, like, Ben's alarm went off early and he didn't even get into work here at this point. Like, we got to talk to that guy after the show. So I do apologize if you might get a phone call. Now, why were you late to the show this morning? So there you go.
Listen. It would be the first time I've heard anything from anybody here or any sort of response on this Thursday morning, so maybe that is the belief. Let's start with the Houston Astros, the hottest team currently in Major League Baseball. 8 straight victories, a sweep in Tampa over the Rays in the Trop. Mauricio Dubon, the RBI single in the 10th inning to win it for Houston. 8 straight victories for the Astros, DRS. And because in another 10-inning game yesterday in Detroit, the Mariners got beat by the Tigers. Kerry Carpenter off to a great return back for Detroit for the first time since the end of May. It's now a 2.5-game advantage for the Astros atop the American League West.
Yeah, we told you yesterday coming into that game, it wasn't so much about I love the pitching matchup, but just like, hey, one team's playing great baseball, the other team is not. Why not just hold on? And in another lower scoring tilt here, the Astros hold on. Doesn't have to be pretty wins as long as you stack them up. Now extending their lead in the AL West. And where does the Astros streak stop? It's not a great baseball team by and large, but they're just getting it done on a night-to-night basis. I talked about it to open up the show. Like, look at the lineup here that started off. It's like, how do you get a win? First of all, there were 4 total hits, Ben, in this game in 10 innings. Altuve 0 for 4, Bregman 0 for 4, Alvarez 0 for 2, Diaz 0 for 4, and they still won the baseball game. When things are going well, even in the ugliest of games, you're still winning them. That's a big notch here. And maybe they can extend this to double digits and beyond and take a 3.5 or 4.5 game lead. The one thing that is interesting, though, is the price point here for the Astros being up only a couple games. It looks like the FanDuel Sportsbook is like, yep, Astros win this division.
Minus 350 DRS. You are correct in terms of the strong consideration from the odds perspective. The Astros have a 2.5-game lead. They are currently trailing in the season series to Seattle, and the two clubs will end the year in their second-to-last series against one another. It could technically change if the lead remains. Only 2.5 games, a long while until we get to the end of September. How about the take from Mark Zinno, who now joins us for his Major League Baseball map on this Thursday. A lot of moving parts here on this edition of the Early Line. Zinno, what do you make of Houston's chances not only to win the division, but maybe contend for yet another American League pennant?
There's no reason to deny it. I've been telling you guys since the middle of June I thought they were going to win this division. And last night, as somebody who bet on the Seattle Mariners on the money line, was all the more proof I needed as to why the Houston Astros will win this division. What a maddeningly frustrating team the Mariners are to bet on, to back, and to believe that they can actually win this division. Twice in the 8th inning with bases loaded, they could not get a base hit to blow the game open. And what happens in a 2-0 game? Well, they give up a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 9th and lose in extras, and that encapsulates the Mariners' offense for the entire season. And why, even with Randy Arozarena being added, I still don't trust this team to score enough runs to not only not win the AL West, but not really even win a playoff series. I mean, they have the pitching. They just don't have the hitting. And maybe, guys, in the postseason, when the play sort of favors the better pitching, you only need 2 or 3 runs to possibly win a game, that may shift the balance in the Mariners' favor. But, again, I just don't trust this team at this point to be a real contender.
Yeah, it's tough all the way around as you play it out. But the one contender that we're looking at right now, the Los Angeles Dodgers, are maybe the most competitive division in baseball. The NL West got tripped up yesterday. The Milwaukee Brewers 5, Los Angeles Dodgers 4. Walker Buehler comes back. 3 1/3 innings pitched. Did give up 4 runs, but only 1 earned. But how about Montas? 5 innings pitched, no earned runs giving up in a win for the Brew Crew here. But the focus, obviously, is going to be on the Dodgers. Betts back in that lineup. They go 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Probably should have won that game, even though they lost. Give me a little bit of that output on the Dodgers of the expectations now in that tight NL West.
Yeah, it's become tight because they've had such a lull over the course of the last month, and the San Diego Padres feel like they're nearly unbeatable at this point in time. I understand why the Dodgers are the favorites, and they're still heavy favorites to win the division and possibly behind the Phillies as far as winning the National League. But let's see what Mookie Betts is a little bit before we start overpricing and overweighing the Dodgers as, what they were back in April and May, right? Like we knew they were going to be good, but Betts has still got to prove that he's 100% healthy and that everything is normal. There are plenty of guys of his caliber who come back from injuries and struggle a little bit. They try to rush back early maybe, or they tweak it and they try to fight through it. And, it's a tough call at this point in time. And as we finish up the dog days of August and turn into September here, I want to get a little bit stronger of a feel that Betts is back to help pace this lineup. But still, to me, guys, right now, the surging Padres are the way to go. In fact, yesterday I put a small little shekel on them to not only win the National League, but the World Series.
The Dodgers at the All-Star break, 56-41, 15 games above 500, but they had lost 8 of their last 11. But even at the All-Star break, LA had a 7-game advantage in the National League West. Well, we have seen what has happened since. LA's been 15-9 since the All-Star break. Not a bad winning record, but not anywhere close to what the Padres and Diamondbacks have compiled. Now just a 2.5-game lead for the Dodgers in the National League West, a division they have won 10 of the last 11 Major League Baseball seasons, but now getting tested, to say the least, by both the Padres and the D-backs. Mark Zinno stays with us for a second consecutive segment to preview a 7-game Thursday slate on the early line around MLB next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
One change in the legislature in Missouri is that this guy who's just totally against sports betting there is not going away.
This has been in progress since last fall. They got 300 and some thousand signatures. All they needed was 170, but those were all certified by local election boards. That had to be done by earlier this month. By tomorrow, the Secretary of State has to verify all those signatures.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
It was just a 2-game set this week between the Phillies and the Marlins. The Phils did split, courtesy of a Kyle Schwarbaum grand salami, to take Game 2 over Miami. The Phils remain at home against a divisional foe for the next few days against the Washington Nationals. Mark Zinno here for a second straight segment for his daily plays around this Thursday MLB slate. Zinno, only 7 games on this Thursday MLB card, and one of the strongest lines, a -270 number in favor of Philadelphia, with Zach Wheeler on the bump against the Nats. The total is 8. Is the price nearly $3 in favor of the Fightins justified today at the bank?
It is, just because of Zach Wheeler's numbers at home. 2.48 ERA, opposing batters batting just 187 against him. He's already faced the Nats this year, going 7 innings, allowing just 2 runs and 3 hits. So the number is right for Zach Wheeler when it comes to him pitching at home this year, a guy who's second in the Cy Young voting. And plus, you also have the Phillies going up against left-hander Mitchell Parker. Yeah, in case you haven't noticed, the Phillies' numbers against lefties this season: scored the second most runs, hit the second most home runs of lefties at home, and they're top 10 in OPS and WRC plus at home this season. Phillies 5-1 against the Nats this year so far. 4 of those 5 wins been by 2 runs or more. The price is right. Phillies -1.5 to play.
Yeah, a little bit better vibes, too, in Philadelphia. Look like another loss to the Marlins. They pulled that one out. Schwarber grand slam. Bullpen holds it down. Now you got your stopper on the mound today. We'll see if you get on a win streak for the Philadelphia Phillies. Boston and Baltimore also tonight, 6:35 Eastern. Pivetta versus Eflin. Favorite here for Baltimore. Actually opened up at a -152 price overnight. It's now showing live at a -136 price. So a little bit of a dip there for the Orioles, a total of 8.5. 2 good teams at the plate here. What gives tonight down in Baltimore?
Guys, I am officially Captain Ahab when it comes to the Baltimore Orioles going down with this damn ship. Because the last 2 nights, they've been the Orioles against the Nationals in the first 5 and lost that one when Trevor Rogers got rocked. And last night, I bet the Orioles team total over to watch them in the 7th inning not push a runner across with 2 outs in the 8th, and 2 outs in the 7th, and then do it again in the 8th to not get that 5th run. So what are we doing here, guys? We are going to go down with the ship. We're going to take the over 8.5 in this game. Why?
Yes.
Because the Orioles are top 10 in batting average, OPS, and WRC plus at home. They've hit the 2nd most home runs. They've scored the 6th most runs. Red Sox starter Nick Pivetta has been better on the road this year, but his last 4 starts a little rough, posting a 5.40 ERA. Hasn't faced the Birds this year, so maybe a little bit of a mixed bag. But the Red Sox bullpen guy's been taxed in that series with the Rangers, going to extra innings twice, losing yesterday. So the Orioles will have at least 8, if not 9 at-bats to get this thing going. Zach Eflin starts for Baltimore. Now, he's already faced the Red Sox this year in a Tampa Bay Rays uniform. Didn't go well for him in this start. Last year, made 2 starts against him. Didn't go well there either, to an ERA near 7. The Red Sox, on the road this year, number 3 in runs scored, number 4 in home runs hit, and top 3 in batting average, OPS, and WRC plus on the road this year. I'm going down with this ship. If we don't get 9 runs tonight between these 2 teams, I may just call it quits.
The Red Sox had an opportunity for a Fenway sweep over the Rangers in the midweek, but Wyatt Langford, the rookie for Texas, had other ideas in the top of the 9th, a 3-run bomb that sent it to extras, and Texas takes advantage to avoid the sweep. The Red Sox 2 games back of the Royals for the 3rd and final AL wildcard spot. The Mets 2 games back of the Braves for the 3rd and final National League wildcard spot after a 9-1 victory yesterday against the A's. It's the rubber match, day baseball on a Thursday at Citi Field in Flushing. The Mets close to a $2 favorite. Zinno, will New York take the rubber match and the midweek set against Oakland?
It's a tough call. I got this game in half, and believe it or not, I won in the first 5 here. Just knowing that Quintana, doesn't feel like he is all that reliable of a starter. And when you start to look at Oakland and what they've done against left-handed pitching since the beginning of July, they've actually done really, really well, which has kind of been shocking that they've been able to hit lefties as good as they have. And they're top 10 in OPS and WRC plus against lefties since July 1st. So it's not really a great setup for the Mets here. And the A's bullpen isn't bad. So even if Mitch Spence is, early, you may be able to get some luck here at the A's bats to get to Quintana.
21-14 since July began. The Oakland Athletics, once a laughingstock in Major League Baseball, not necessarily the case this year. Still 51-70 and 19 games below 500, but still not as bad as maybe we thought. Mark Zinno, have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Hour 3 on the early line is up next.